I've gotten a few questions about efficiency strategies while taking step 2. So today I wanted to talk about some of my efficiency strategies for tackling exam day questions. I'm going to be talking about highlighting, strike through, time management on your questions, and how I handled long questions or multi-part questions. So let's go ahead and get started. We all know that time management during step 2 is really important. You have to keep a good pace to get through everything. So some things that I did as far as highlighting in notes is I kept my highlighting in notes to a minimum. So I didn't want to be spending a bunch of time highlighting things or writing things down. I tried to, limit that as much as possible. I did use the strike through feature a lot in order to eliminate incorrect answers. I think that's really important, especially if you're not sure on the answer and you need to come back to it. It's one less thing you need to read if you've already used the strike through feature. I also utilized flagging a lot during my exams. So I would flag questions that I wasn't 100% certain on. I would just go ahead and flag it. Every single one that I wasn't certain on. So that way, at the end of the section or the question set, I could go back to all of the questions that I flagged and just, review it and see if I would change my answer or leave it. I was actually reading something a while ago that I think they were saying that it might actually be better to change your answer, which is counterintuitive because you would think that it would be better to keep your first answer. But if you've really thought through it, it might actually be better to change your answer. And I noticed if you look in your UWorld statistics, you can see how many questions you initially got correct and then you switched it to the incorrect. Like you can see they break it down if you changed your answer. And you can see like if it was better, if you generally tend to switch your answer to the correct answer, or if you generally tend to switch from correct to incorrect, you can see that in UWorld. So go off of that information on the real exam. That's what I would say to do, and that's what I did. So I found that more often than not, I had a better chance of getting it right if I switched my answer because I would tend to switch to the correct answer. That's something that I thought was interesting. But yeah, I would flag all of the questions I wasn't sure about and I'd come back to it. And if there was a question that was like particularly long or that I wasn't really getting the answer, but I knew it was somewhere in my mind, but I just wasn't getting it, but I needed more time, I would actually write that question number down on my laminated piece of paper and circle that, and then I would come back to it first. So I would prioritize coming back to that question at the end, like if I had extra time, and then I would go through all of my other flagged questions. I also did this for like the long biostats questions or those multiple part questions. So I would actually just skip those questions entirely if there's a bunch of stuff to read because they would stress me out. So I would just skip that and come back to it. I just didn't want it bogging me down and taking up a bunch of time and then having to scramble for the rest of the section. So I would just skip it and I would come back to that first when I had extra time at the end because you really want to maximize all of the questions that you're answering. And I just thought like worst case scenario, if I don't get to this question, at least I'm getting all of those other questions right, or, I have a shot at those other questions, but I would just come back to them. That way I would have more time to actually think about them because I have time left at the end of my section. So I would just I would just come back to those. In an issue, so some of those multi-part questions, you have to submit the answer before you can get to the next part of the question. The issue that I had with those was that, when I was doing practice questions, I would notice that it would sort of give you the right answer, or you would know if you were right or wrong, sort of, when you got to the next part. And I didn't want that throwing off my headspace. So I would save those multi-part questions for the end as well. That way I would just, it wouldn't mess me up for the rest of the section if like, say I was worried that I got the question or all of the parts wrong. I just didn't want to have to deal with that. So I would just come back to that. You do have to be good about keeping track of what questions you did and you did not answer. On the side, you can tell what questions you did and didn't answer. But just, don't forget to go back to them, of course. But for me personally, I found it was better to just skip those so that I had a good headspace to actually do them in. Like sometimes if you have like a really long question, it would just like stress me out because I'm like, well, how much time do I have to do this? Anyway. Then I also wanted to talk about time management. So if you're doing a question and you don't know the answer pretty much right away, with like a little bit of thinking, I would just flag it and move on. This is a test about maximizing the amount of questions you get right. Like questions don't have a weight to them. So each question that you tackle is important. So just go back to it. Yeah, okay, that's basically it. We talked about highlighting, strike through, flagging questions and prioritizing them and coming back to the big, long, scary questions. That's what worked for me. I hope this is somewhat helpful to you. If you have more specific questions on this, please let me know. And if you have any specific strategies that you used that worked well for you, please leave them in the comments below and help everyone out. And yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.